Sometimes the most dangerous attacks don't come with weapons or armies. They come wrapped in stories. Stories that twist the truth, distort identity, and spread like wildfire until the lie feels louder than the person it originally targeted. In 2025, conservative political commentator Candace Owens released Becoming Brigitte. This sponsored, 2-season, 10-episode podcast is meant to prove that Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, is her husband Emmanuel Macron's biological transgender father, and that all of this is a part of a CIA mind control experiment. The book, Who is Brigitte, reports that overnight speculation sparked doubts about Brigitte's identity, her marriage, and even the stability of the French presidency. Today, we will analyze Candace Owens' documentary to see that her attack on Brigitte Macron shows that political misogyny is utilized to undermine women in power. Therefore, we must ask the research question. How does rhetorical framing by Candace Owens utilize political misogyny to undermine women and the trans community in political discourse? To answer, we turn to political scientist Susan Dovey in her 2024 research paper, The Elite-Driven Model of Political Misogyny, to explore a more enhanced understanding of what political misogyny is and how it impacts our political society, making it critical for our analysis. So first, I will explain the model. Then, I will talk about the applications of this model with Becoming Brigitte before showing some implications. Because when a political leader can rewrite a woman's identity in a sentence, it's not just gossip. It's political power at work. Candace Owens turned Brigitte Macron's life into a punchline and my community's identity into a weapon. So first, let us get some background on the theory, the elite-driven model of political misogyny. The elite-driven model of political misogyny was published to the American Political Science Association in 2024 by political scientist Susan Dovey. According to Dovey, political misogyny is an elite-driven process that directs and transfers the hatred and revulsion directed against high-profile women in politics to those who resemble and align with said high-profile women. And it has three necessary components. Component 1, political elites will advance nasty claims about high-profile women in politics. Component 2, these nasty claims connect to and activate gendered prejudices against women in politics. And the third component, relevant audiences will receive and accept the collective repugnant connotations of those nasty claims as their own. For example, Dovey highlights that the scandal with Hillary Clinton and her emails is an example of political misogyny at work. For our first component, nasty claims from elites, Dovey explains that political misogyny often starts with elites, from politicians, media figures, or influencers publicly attacking women in politics. These insults rely on double standards, criticizing women for being too emotional or too cold or too qualified or not qualified enough to too attractive or not attractive enough. The harshest attacks don't even just question competence. They portray women as a whole as repulsive, aiming to delegitimize us entirely. For activation of gender prejudices, these attacks carry extra weight because they link a woman's political identity to her body, drawing on deep-rooted stereotypes and sexist caricatures, such as the nagging wife or controlling mother, and tap into cultural biases in ways that insults towards men, such as calling President Donald Trump a Cheeto, typically don't. The impact only grows when these messages come from credible figures and are repeated, spreading harmful gender norms and justifying women's exclusion from power. Our third component, audience acceptance. Dovey highlights that audiences will internalize these claims often without realizing it. When people absorb sexist messages, they may not just reject one woman, but others who share her traits or political stance. This happens through both conscious beliefs and unconscious reactions. Now, political misogyny doesn't impact all women equally. It varies by context, identity, and audience. But overall, these repeated attacks can help to reinforce structural inequality, even if they're dismissed as just personal. Now that we understand how the theory works, let's apply it to our artifact, Becoming Brigitte. The term for Candace Owens' documentary is a transvestigation, which is defined by GLAAD in 2025 as a conspiracy theory that asserts that many prominent members of society are secretly transgender. Proponents claim to be able to determine the assigned sex of individuals primarily through photographic and videographic evidence. Transvestigations will often target powerful women, from Taylor Swift to Michelle Obama to Olympic athletes. In my opinion, speculating about one's genitals is a deeply weird way to spend one's precious time on Earth, but Candace Owens takes it a step further by insinuating that Brigitte Macron is her husband's father. For a second component, activation of gender prejudices, according to the 19th in 2025, the falsehood that women like Brigitte Macron and others are not women limits the spectrum of what a woman can look like, can do, and how we can participate in society. Owens activates this misogyny by assuming that the First Lady of France, a fairly accomplished gentle lady, is secretly a man. Our third component, audience acceptance. Candace Owens' series clearly gained traction. By March of 2025, several TikTok reactions held millions of views, and episodes 3 through 5 attracted sponsors from supplements, meatpacking companies, and even real estate agencies. The videos themselves regularly draw in between 2 to 5 million views, showing strong audience engagement. Now that we understand how this theory applies to the documentary, let's go ahead and answer a research question and then look at some implications. Today we ask the research question, how does rhetorical framing by Candace Owens utilize political misogyny to normalize prejudice against women in the trans community in political discourse? According to the Southern Poverty Law Center in 2025, these attacks expose that anti-trans hate and misogyny will often intersect, harming everyone. Owens' documentary didn't just spread transphobia, it damaged Brigitte Macron's real life. As the BBC reports in 2025, Brigitte Macron will be forced to provide photos of herself pregnant and raising her children in an international court of law to prove that she is a woman. That's not journalism. That is humiliation. High profile or not, Brigitte Macron is still a person and deserves to be respected. It's not all negative though. There are a few key positive implications to look at first. Such as, according to the femme community in March of 2023, when political misogyny targets women and/or LGBTQ+ groups, minority communities will often unite to push back against this defamation. This is reflected in the lawsuit that Candace Owens is now facing, according to the BBC in 2025. Additionally, the Journal of Machine Learning with Applications in 2024 notes that public exposure to radical misogyny will often lead citizens to correct misinformation and demand higher standards of political communication. This increased awareness helps people identify and challenge biased narratives. For our negative impacts, obviously, the normalization of misogyny in public discourse. The Journal of Political Science and Politics reports in 2025 that such rhetoric can fuel harassment, discrimination, and even violence. And while some may feel empowered to speak out, others are silenced. According to the Loop in 2025, harmful rhetoric can reduce confidence among women and LGBTQ+ individuals, leading to fewer political candidates and less participation overall. Candace Owens' rhetoric makes it clear that elite-driven political misogyny harms women and trans people, but also weakens democracy, bringing us to our conclusion. Today, we were able to analyze Candace Owens' documentary to see that her attacks against Brigitte Macron show that elite-driven political misogyny weaponizes gendered mockery to undermine women in power. We first talked about the theory of elite-driven political misogyny by political scientist Susan Dovey. Second, we applied that theory to our documentary, Becoming Brigitte, before going into our implications and answering our research question. Because Owens' attack is not just a jab at one woman in power. It's elite-driven political misogyny at work. It weaponizes gendered mockery to legitimize women while deepening the stigma that already endangers my community. When leaders turn trans identity into an insult, it doesn't just impact women or the trans community. It harms everyone and corrodes democracy.